Okay, hi everybody. I'm Marta and I'm doing this exploratory research for my final project of my master degree of health psychology that I'm doing in Spain. The topic is psychological variables related to football passion. So now, why I choose this topic? Okay, nowadays the violence in football is an actual problem in whole Europe. Only in Spain, since the year 2003, 12,078 complaints related to verbal and physical violence have been reported toward football fans. These complaints are reported during the football match in the Spanish Premier League. Here we have to take in account that researchers said that the mostly part of the violence in football happened before and after the match because in the stadium it's easier control and identify the people who is doing this violence. So hooligans and people who do it prefer to choose the outside to do the violence. So, because of this fact, it's really frequent to read news about cases of vandalism, fights, and even in some extreme cases about murders because of football violence and from fans of opposite teams. So, when I start to realize that is a real problem maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I start to be really curious about the topic. So I start to make myself a lot of questions, like, well, why football is so important for that people? Because I get it, football is a really important and really famous sport. It's entertaining, it's interesting, okay, but why are these people willing to fight because of football? What does football mean for them? So I started to do researches just for curiosity, for answer this question. And I start to find a lot of data really interesting. For example, there is like a kind of agreement of the descriptive data of that describe people who do that kind of violence. For example, hooligan usually are men, are young, and related to lower class. And of course, there are a lot of correlations that have done related to violence in football. Like, for example, I chose these three because I really studied, and I think that they are really interested to share with you. The first is the correlation between the violence and the football violence and the alcohol and drug abuse. Researchers said that this correlation is because alcohol and drugs help them to make a fluctuation on the emotion, so it's easier for them to avoid feeling of guilty, for example. The second is the sensation seeking, because it said that people do this violence because they are searching a strong emotion, a strong feeling, a strong experience. So they use violence for that. And the third is the correlation between the status of masculinity, the hegemonic masculinity. It said that these people, hooligans, are fighting in order to show that they are real men, that they are strong. I mean, this hegemonic masculinity. So there are a kind of correlation here too. So, of course, this data is really interesting. But when I was reading this, I feel like I missed something. I needed to know more and to get more information. So I thought, okay, when I get into the master degree, I'm going to do my thesis about that. And now it's what I'm trying to do. So now, doing my researches for my thesis, I realized that violent football and football hooligans are a kind of radicalism. So I start to explore and to analyze theories about radicalization. Here I found these 3 theories that help me a lot to understand that kind of behavior. The first one is the triad model, which explains the radicalization with 3 elements: needs, narrative, and network. The first, the need, is the quest for significance, is the need to be someone and to be respected by others. What happened here? With a person lost their significance, for example, with social margination, social alienation, bullying, or that kind of experience, they have the strong need of be someone, of search something in which they feel that they are part of. So they have this, if they have the opportunity to enter in that kind of group, they are gonna take the opportunity. Then once that they are inside of the group, they find that they are a narrative, an ideological narrative that plays 2 important roles. The first is building a system of values and rules that are going to guide the behavior of all the members of the group. And the second is providing a moral justification, because maybe for us, this behavior are bad, but for them are not bad, but also are necessary. So they need this moral justification for do it. And the third element is the network. The group provides a sense of belonging, which satisfy the quest for significance, satisfy this need that we were talking about in the first place. So with these 3 elements, they get into the group and also they keep into the group. Now, the dualistic model of passion, which defines passion like a strong inclination towards something, toward an object, a person, a movement, a cause, whatever. But it needs to be something that you really love and you really value it, because you're going to invest a huge time and a huge energy on that. So this model defines the passion like in a kind of continuum in which there are 2 extreme points: the harmonious passion and the obsessive passion. The harmonious is when the involvement is flexible. You have the control all the time, and you decide when you want to do something and when you don't want to do it. While in the obsessive passion, you don't have this freedom. The involvement is rigid, and you feel all the time uncontrollable urge to participate, and you feel like you have a moral obligation to do everything related to the cause. Okay, really similar to this theory is the pyramid model, the third theory. This is kind of similar to the iceberg theory, in which it said that the most visible part is the top. Here it's applying with radicalism, so the more visible part is in the top, and is terrorists and radicals. But there are more. In the base, we can find that there are sympathizers and followers. That, of course, they are not supporting the violence, neither any vandalism and any act related to that, but they are supporting the basic idea of the radicals, that is the passion and the love for their team, their football. So this theory explains that in some way this support of the love of football is supporting the basic idea of the radicals. This theory is really related with the dualistic model of passion, because on the top we can find the obsessive passion, while in the base we can find the harmonious passion. This theory is really important for this project, and then I will explain you why. So now, what is my target, my objective? Well, my objective is explore the variables related to football passion. And which variables? Well, those that are studied in the area of radicalization, because I found there is a lot of paper which study the radicalization, the political radicalization, the religious radicalization, but I couldn't find papers which apply the theories of radicalization to this football violence. So I chose identity fusion, moral disengagement, personality, and psychopathy because there are 4 variables that are really studied in this area of radicalization. And I want to find and I want to know if there are similar results. So, how I'm doing it? I built an instrument, a survey of with 6 already validated scales, an activism and radicalization intention scale, a patient scale, the docent to evaluate psychopathy, a version of moral disengagement, an adapted version of the TP inventory of Gosling, and a verbal escape of identity fusion. There are a total of 62 items, and there are 2 versions in paper and online. Here, in my experience in Italy, the completed survey has been adapted to the Italian using the translation and back translation process. The author of this adapted version are our colleague Ana Maria and Martina, a colleague of mine from Spain, Sarai, and me. And we did it in 3 phases. The first, the translation, of course. The second, the comparison between the translated versions. And the third, a discussion to choose the best item for respect, of course, the original scales, but also for adapt the item to the language, to the Italian language. So now we are currently working on it. I don't finish still my thesis, but I am working on it. I have already like 400 participants in the Spanish sample, and now we are starting to collect data in the Italian sample. And here I would like to make a little stop, because I guess that you are wondering and you are saying, okay, this girl is talking all the time about radicalization and about hooligans, but her title doesn't mention anything of that. And yes, it's completely true. And here is the reason why I told you that the pyramid theory is really important for this project. I am basing the project on the theory, on the pyramid theory, and on the dualism model of passion, because I, of course, want to have data about radicals and hooligans, but I also want to know the information about sympathizer and follower. In that way, I am trying to make comparisons and to see if there are any difference in order to correlate with the other variables. So now, I don't have the result yet because, as I said, I am working on it, but I would like to share with you my expectation. Okay, I think that I'm gonna find similar results that other researchers found with the investigation about other kind of radicalization. So I think I'm gonna find a directly correlation between activism and harmonious passion, and between radicalism and obsessive passion. And then I'm gonna use these 2 variables in order to make correlation with the other ones. So I think I'm going to find a directly correlation between obsessive passion and high scores in fusion identity and moral disengagement. Then I would like to share with you also my implication. Okay, the main implication of this project is to pave the way. I mean, as I told you, there are a lot of papers who study the radicalization in other areas. So I think that it will be really important to open this path and start to investigate and to apply all the theories of radicalization in football violence. Because football is a really accessible area. I'm sure that all of you know people that are fans of football, and also people that are part of a hooligan group related to football, because it's something really common in our society. So I think that it would be really useful, have more information, understand what are in the base of this behavior, and which are the motivation of those people. But this also helped for the second implication of the project, that is improve the action for reducing violence in football. So now, thank you for your attention. I hope you find interesting my project. And of course, feel free to write on my email or ask me if you have some doubts or some questions.